Hello everyone, and welcome to a bit of a different video where today I just really want to have a chat about something that has been bothering me for a little while, and I just want to share an opinion with all of you. And that is that I think it would be much better for the community if there weren't Bluefor players and Redfor players, but if everybody played on whichever side needed people at that time. And today I want to talk through the reasons why I think that's good for players to play on both red and blue, and why I think it would be much better for the server and the community at large. Now, I do have two caveats to this that I just want to head off before they get swamped in the comment section. First off, if you only have one module, then yeah, obviously you're only going to fly on one side, and that's fine. DCS modules are very expensive, and so it's totally unreasonable to expect people to pick up another side's module just to be able to play on the other side. That said, if you do have several modules and you are looking to pick up another one, what I'm really trying to make an argument for here is try and pick one up that's on the opposite side from what you normally play on. The other caveat is I absolutely get how fun it can be if you pick one side and stick with it for an entire campaign, but then I'd argue that the next campaign maybe go on the opposite side and stick with that for a full campaign. That way you still get this kind of meta game of pushing the campaign, pushing your team towards victory, but without some of the issues that we're going to see in a bit. So those out the way, let's jump to the video. So, ignoring the state of the server, the community at large, why is it a good idea for you as a player to play on both sides in Enigma's Cold War server? Well, the major one is that is the best way to learn the weaknesses of the enemy aircraft, is actually flying those aircraft. We've all been in that situation where in some multiplayer game someone has something you don't and it just seems unfair and overpowered, and you just get frustrated when you come up against it because you've got no idea how to fight it. But then you finally gain access to that and all of a sudden you see all of the downsides that come with it. And on a lot of DCS modules it goes the same way. You can think that a certain airframe is massively overpowered until you are the one actually in the cockpit trying to use it, and suddenly you see all of these drawbacks. Now, not only is seeing these drawbacks quite good for the community, leads to a little bit less toxicity of people accusing the other side of being overpowered, but importantly for you as the player, if you know what those weaknesses are, you know how to exploit them. F5 is wonderfully easy to fly, really good turn fighter, but if you've ever flown an F5, you know that it can't accelerate worth a damn. Equally, the MiG-21 can be really scary when it's on the other side, but if you've ever flown one, you know how it behaves when it gets into a low speed regime, and it is just awful. Same thing applies to weapons. R3Rs can be really scary, missiles coming towards you, but if you've ever tried to use them on the fishbed, you'll know that if the enemy is at low level, all you're going to see on your radar display is ground clutter and nothing else. So by jumping in the other planes, trying them out, you really get to feel for these weaknesses, and then you can apply those in your dogfights going forward. So you force that MiG-21 down to a low speed, you approach it at low level so it can't get a radar lock. That F5, you go vertical and force it to struggle with its weak engines. And the second point I'd like to make is mostly focused on when the teams are unbalanced, why it's good for you as a player to join the team with the fewest people on. And that is honestly a target-rich environment. You get to get into combat, you get to have a lot of fun. May not always be very successful, but you can guarantee that you will be doing something. I've seen many times people complaining in chat that they can't find enemy players, or when they do, there's always 5 friendlies, always jockeying for the kill or kill stealing from one another. And when you then look at the teams, it's because they're outnumbering the enemy team by a huge margin, so of course they're having problems finding an enemy to engage. Flip that on its head, you join the weaker team, you are almost never going to have a kill stolen from you. You're never going to have problems finding enemies, because they will be coming for you. Honestly, all of my most fun sorties and a lot of the ones that I end up doing really well in have been when I've spawned specifically on a team that is significantly down in players, just because you get so much action. And this also applies to air-to-ground players. Again, I've seen people complaining that they can't find any live targets on the ground, that they've all been wiped out in advance. And again, you look at the team listing, and they've got more air-to-ground players than the other team has players altogether. So yeah, of course the friendlies are going to have taken everything out already. So if you want to get into the action nice and easily, you want to get engagements without having to fret about having friendlies steal kills away from you, then do consider that team with hardly any players on. Now those are certainly both reasons that I myself do really like to join whichever team has the lowest numbers. But on top of that, I think it would really help the server if whenever the teams were unbalanced, it was more normal for people just to automatically jump onto whichever side has the fewest number of people. And the obvious reason for that is simple server balance. Although you certainly get action a lot quicker and easier if you're on a team with significantly less players than the other side, it is always more fun for both sides and a lot fairer for both sides if the teams are at least approximately equal. Nobody likes getting into 5-on-1s, whether that is 5 of you versus 1 enemy and you're squabbling over who gets the kill, or 5 enemies on you and the best you can do is maybe take one out before the rest absolutely murder you. And unfortunately there are plenty of times where those teams are unbalanced and you still see player after player coming in and joining the team that already has an advantage. But then the big reason, and the reason I'm really making this video, is I think if players played on both sides more often, it would cut down significantly on some of the worst of the toxicity. Certainly not saying that Enigma's Cold War is a particularly toxic server, but there are certainly elements of that present. We've all seen them, people making comments along the lines of, oh, Bluefor don't know how to fly, oh, Redfor always like that, don't worry about it, oh, the other team just doesn't know how to play fair, etc, etc. I get them in my videos, oddly for both sides, commenting pretty much the same thing, just depends on what plane I've taken out that time. See it in server chat, you see it on the Discord server. And honestly, there is no reason for that. There is no fundamental difference between Bluefor players and Redfor players. And the best way to see that is to play on both sides, chat to both sides on SRS, get to know players who frequent both sides, and you'll see really there is no difference. Yeah, there are absolute arseholes on red, there are absolute arseholes on blue, they're just the same. There are also fantastic people on red and fantastic people on blue, and I think if we all got to know each other better, it'd just be good for everyone. And certainly this weird red-blue tribalism, I think, just doesn't have any place. We're not Redfor players, we're not Bluefor players, we're all DCS players. So yeah, that's just a little bit of a rant that I had, just something that keeps cropping up again and again, and I think playing on both sides is the best way to deal with that kind of underlying tribalism. And do let me know what your opinion is. I'm just some guy on the internet, I certainly don't have all of the answers. This is just my opinion and something that's been bugging me for a little while. I love Enigma's Cold War, I love the community here, but just because I really, really love it doesn't mean that we can't all strive to make sure that it stays positive and, in fact, gets better going on. But anyway, until next time, just remember to be kind to yourselves and everyone else, including the folk who fly on the other team. Cheers.